At my husband's birthday dinner that I paid for, he raised a glass to his work wife and called her his biggest support. Then he gave me a gift bag with a t-shirt that said, "Divorced and free." Everyone laughed. She leaned over and kissed his cheek. I just sat there, my face burning. I paid for my own humiliation. Then I walked out. 5 minutes later, 87 missed calls. "Before we eat this incredible meal my wife paid for," Logan announced, raising his champagne at the birthday dinner I'd spent 3 months planning, "I need to thank the woman who really supports me." My hand froze on my water glass. $8,000. That's what this night cost me. "Natalie Brooks," he continued, gesturing to his coworker in the red dress, "my work wife and the person who truly understands me." The room applauded. Then he turned to me with a gift bag, that smile I'd once loved now sharp as glass. And for my actual wife, something special. The t-shirt said "Divorced and free." Everyone laughed except me. But that was tonight. This morning, 12 hours earlier, I'd been a different person. A woman who still believed her sacrifices meant something. Before we go further, thank you for reading stories that reveal the real cost of silence. If you believe women deserve financial freedom and respect, subscribe. It's free and empowers others to reclaim their worth. The alarm had gone off at 5 a.m. like always. Logan needed his smoothie ready by 7:15, exactly 10 minutes before he left for work. The protein powder alone cost $60, imported from New Zealand because the regular kind tasted cheap. I measured it carefully, knowing we had maybe 3 servings left and payday was still 4 days away. My banking app showed $47 to last until then. While the blender whirred, I checked his shirts. 5 designer button-downs hung in order of the week, each one costing more than my monthly therapy copay I'd canceled 6 months ago. Tuesday's shirt had a wrinkle near the collar. Logan would notice. He always noticed imperfections in everything except himself. The iron hissed as I pressed the fabric, remembering my easel gathering dust in the garage. These hands used to hold paintbrushes at dawn, creating landscapes I'd sell at farmers markets for grocery money. Now they smoothed out wrinkles in $200 shirts for a man who hadn't said thank you in months. "Don't forget the MCT oil," Logan had reminded me last night as if I'd ever forgotten. $28 a bottle for oil that supposedly optimized his brain function. I wondered what it would optimize for someone who spent their mornings actually thinking. By the time I reached my office, a medical billing company where I processed insurance claims for 8 hours straight, my stomach was already growling. The break room smelled like Linda's leftover Chinese food, making my hunger worse. At noon, I stood in line at the cafe downstairs, calculating. $6 for a salad. That would leave $41 for gas, any emergencies, and whatever else came up before Friday. The card reader beeped. That sound. Not approved, not denied, but that special beep that means insufficient funds. The cashier, a kid maybe 19, tried again. Same beep. "Maybe try another card?" she suggested quietly, but not quietly enough. Behind me, 2 women from accounting exchanged looks. The kind that said they knew exactly why my card was declining. "Oh, I just grabbed the wrong card," I said, my face burning. I'll come back." In the bathroom stall, I ate stale crackers from my desk drawer, the kind they give you with soup that I'd been saving for emergencies. My phone buzzed with a text from Logan. "Client dinner tonight at Morton's. Don't wait up." Morton's, where appetizers cost $30. Where he'd order wine that cost more than our weekly grocery budget. Where the bill would go on his corporate card while mine got declined buying lettuce. I texted back, "We need groceries. Can you transfer some money?" His response came 20 minutes later. "Can't right now, in a meeting. We'll figure it out this weekend." This weekend. Always this weekend. This weekend, when he'd suddenly remember an urgent golf game or a networking event or another excuse to avoid looking at our finances. My finances, really, since I paid for everything while he saved. Saturday arrived with Emma's wedding dress fitting. My sister stood on the platform, glowing in silk and lace, while Marcus, her fiancé, surprised her with the exact Vera Wang dress she'd been dreaming about but said was too expensive. "You deserve everything," he told her, and meant it. I twisted my bare ring finger under the fluorescent lights. Emma noticed, of course. Sisters always notice. "Where's Grandma's ring?" she asked during a break. "The one with the sapphires?" "Getting it resized," I lied. The ring had been gone for 3 weeks, Sold to a pawn shop to cover Logan's car insurance. He'd forgotten to pay it, and letting it lapse would look bad to his firm. Emma studied my face. Avery, are you okay? Really okay? Logan's birthday is tomorrow, I said, changing the subject. Big party at La Bernardine. Fancy. How many people? 25. Her eyebrows rose. That's going to cost a fortune. $8,000 to be exact. Money I didn't have. Money I'd pulled from my emergency fund, the last safety net I had. But Logan had insisted. His 35th birthday had to be memorable, had to impress the partners at his firm, had to show everyone how successful he was. That night, after Logan fell asleep at 11 p.m., I sat at our kitchen table with my laptop, moving money I couldn't spare into an account that would be empty by tomorrow. The Michelin star restaurant wanted another $2,000 for wine pairings Logan had added without asking me. My reflection in the dark window looked like someone I didn't recognize. Hollow eyes, tight jaw, the face of a woman who'd forgotten what her own dreams looked like. I created a spreadsheet of dietary restrictions for people I'd never met. Gluten-free for someone named Bradley. Vegan for Rebecca. No shellfish for Thomas. 25 strangers who would eat $8,000 worth of food I was paying for while my own lunch came from a desk drawer. My phone screen showed 11:47 p.m. In 24 hours I'd be sitting at that restaurant, smiling and playing the perfect wife. I didn't know yet that in 24 hours and 13 minutes, I'd be walking out with a t-shirt that said divorced and free, my phone exploding with calls, my marriage ending with the same public spectacle it had been sustained by. But at that moment I just stared at the credit card I was about to max out and wondered how many more times I could disappear into someone else's life before I completely vanished from my own. The morning sun had barely shifted to afternoon when my phone rang. La Bernardine. The restaurant manager's voice was professionally apologetic, explaining that Mr. Harrison had called to add premium wine pairings to tonight's dinner. Another $2,000. We'll need payment confirmation before service, she said. I sat on the edge of our bed, still in my robe, the emerald dress hanging on the closet door like an expensive ghost. Logan was in the shower, singing off-key to whatever was trending on his workout playlist. 2,000 more. On top of the 6,000 I'd already hemorrhaged. My first credit card company put me on hold for 12 minutes. The hold music was some jazzy version of a pop song, cheerful and mocking. When the representative finally answered, her voice had that practiced sympathy they must teach in training. I'm sorry, Mrs. Harrison, but you've reached your maximum limit. The second company offered a $100 increase. The third, after hearing my voice crack when I said please, gave me $500. Still not enough. I called my bank, the small credit union that had my car loan, and begged for a cash advance against next month's paycheck. They gave me enough to cover the rest. Logan emerged from the bathroom in a towel, his phone already in his hand. Why aren't you dressed? We need to leave in 40 minutes. The restaurant called about. Can you handle it? I need to respond to these emails. He didn't wait for an answer, already typing as he walked to his closet. My hands shook as I applied foundation over the stress hives blooming across my chest. The expensive concealer. A birthday gift from Logan's mother who'd mentioned I looked tired at last year's holiday party, couldn't quite hide the red patches. My fingers fumbled with the mascara wand, leaving a black smudge under my eye that took 3 cotton swabs to fix. You're taking forever, Logan called from the bedroom. People are already heading to the restaurant. The emerald dress zipped up with difficulty. I'd lost weight over the past few months, not from trying but from skipping meals to save money. Yet somehow the dress felt tighter. Stress, probably. Everything felt constricting lately. The pearl necklace sat in its velvet box on my dresser. My grandmother's pearls, the ones she'd worn to her own wedding in 1952. The ones my mother had worn to hers. The ones that were supposed to be worn to mine, except I'd eloped with Logan at City Hall because a wedding was an unnecessary expense. My fingers traced the smooth spheres before clasping them around my neck. They were the last valuable thing I owned that hadn't been sold, pawned, or sacrificed. The ride to the restaurant took 20 minutes in Logan's BMW, the one I made payments on while driving my 10-year-old Honda. He spent the entire drive on a conference call, occasionally mouthing sorry at me while discussing quarterly projections with someone named Richard. La Bernardine's private dining room glowed with soft lighting and fresh orchids. 25 place settings sparkled on cream linen. I recognized exactly 6 faces. Logan's brother James, his cousin Melissa, 3 people from his gym, and his college roommate David. The rest were strangers in expensive suits and cocktail dresses, people who worked with Logan, people who knew him in ways I apparently didn't. Avery. A woman's voice, bright and false. Natalie Brooks approached in a red dress that moved like liquid money. Saint Laurent maybe. Definitely this season. So sweet of you to throw this party for Logan. He talks about you sometimes. Sometimes. The hostess guided me to my seat at the far end of the table. Logan sat at the center, the birthday king holding court, with Natalie somehow positioned at his right hand. They were already laughing about something, her hand briefly touching his arm, his eyes crinkling in that way they used to for me. The first course arrived. Oysters I was apparently paying $60 per person for, and I watched Logan work the room. He was magnificent at this, I had to admit. Making everyone feel important, telling the right jokes, remembering details about their lives. When had he stopped doing that for me? So, Avery, the woman next to me said. Patricia? Paul? Logan says you work in medical billing. That must be steady. That must be boring, she meant. That must be beneath this room full of lawyers and executives and people who didn't know what a declined credit card sounded like. The wine pairings began flowing. Each pour probably cost more than my weekly lunch budget. Logan raised his glass after the third course and my stomach tightened. This was it. The moment he'd thank me for everything, acknowledge the planning, the sacrifice, the $8,000 I'd lit on fire for this moment. Before we eat this incredible meal my wife paid for, he began, and for a second my heart lifted. I need to thank the woman who really supports me. The room quieted. 25 faces turned toward him, then followed his gaze to Natalie. Natalie Brooks, my work wife and the person who truly understands me. The applause was immediate. Natalie actually stood and gave a little bow. Someone whistled. Logan was beaming at her like she'd hung the moon, and I sat there with my hands frozen on my water glass, trying to understand how we'd gotten here. Then he reached under his chair and pulled out a gift bag. Powder blue paper, silver tissue, a white ribbon. He turned to me with that smile, the one I'd fallen in love with 6 years ago, except now it looked different. Calculated. And for my actual wife, something special. The bag was light in my hands. Too light for jewelry. Too light for anything meaningful. I pulled out the tissue paper and there it was. Black fabric. White letters. Divorced and free. The laughter hit me in waves. Someone said, "Oh my God, that's hilarious." Another voice. "Logan, you're terrible." Camera phones appeared. The flash from someone's photo made me blink. Then Natalie leaned over and kissed Logan's cheek. Slow. Deliberate. Her lipstick left a perfect red mark on his skin. He didn't wipe it off. I folded the shirt with the same precision I'd used to fold his laundry that morning. Placed it carefully on the table next to my untouched plate. My voice came out steadier than I felt. "Excuse me. I need to use the restroom." But I turned left instead of right. The hostess stand was empty for a moment, the staff busy with service. I waited, my grandmother's pearls tight against my throat, until someone appeared. The Harrison party. I need to handle the bill. Of course, Mrs. Harrison. $8,347. That's what 3 months of planning, a lifetime of sacrifice, and my entire emergency fund had bought. I handed over my credit card, the one I just begged to increase the limit on. It went through. Barely. "Could you hold the receipt for 5 minutes before returning it to the table?" She nodded, confused but professional. The Boston winter hit my bare arms like judgment. My coat was draped over my chair in that warm room full of people still laughing at Logan's gift. I didn't care. The cold felt honest, real, nothing like the performance I'd just funded. My phone started ringing before I reached the corner. Logan's name lighting up the screen. Once. Twice. By the time I found my car, 17 times. By the first red light, 43 calls in 5 minutes. I drove toward the only safe place I knew. Emma's porch light flickered on before I could knock. She must have been watching for me through the window. One look at my face. Mascara creating black rivers despite the $40 waterproof guarantee. And she pulled me inside without a word. The warmth of her house felt foreign after the Boston winter had numbed everything external while everything internal burned. "Where's your coat?" she asked, but I couldn't answer because my phone was screaming. 87 missed calls in the 5 minutes since I'd parked. The number climbed as we watched. 88, 89, 90. Emma guided me to her kitchen floor, the cool tiles somehow comforting against my legs. She didn't ask questions yet, just pulled a bottle of wine from the fridge and 2 coffee mugs from the cabinet. We didn't need wine glasses for this conversation. The phone kept buzzing. 97 calls now. 98. You have to answer, Emma said finally. Just once. Let's hear what excuse he's manufactured. My finger hesitated over Logan's name. Call number 103. I hit speaker. Where are you? His voice exploded into Emma's kitchen, sharp with panic. Everyone's leaving. The staff is confused. You need to come back right now and fix this situation. In the background I heard her. Natalie. Whispering something about damage control, about spinning the narrative. They were strategizing together while I sat on my sister's floor in an $8,000 mistake. Fix what situation, Logan? My voice sounded steadier than I felt. Don't play games, Avery. It was a joke. Natalie said. He caught himself. Everyone's uncomfortable. Just come back and we'll discuss this later like adults. Like adults who give their wives divorce shirts as party favors? You're being dramatic. You always do this, make everything bigger than it needs to be. Emma grabbed the phone from my hand. She's done talking to you tonight, Logan. Try again when you've figured out what you actually did wrong. She hung up and immediately blocked his number on my phone. There. Now drink. The wine tasted like copper pennies and bad decisions. We sat there until 2 a.m., Emma occasionally checking my phone as texts flooded in from unknown numbers. Logan's brother calling me selfish. His mother saying I'd ruined his special day. Even Natalie had the audacity to message. Real wives support their husband's sense of humor. Marcus found us the next morning, still on the kitchen floor, empty wine bottle between us. He took in the scene. My ruined makeup, the emerald dress now wrinkled beyond repair, Emma's protective fury, and simply said, "Let me make coffee. Then we need to talk about your finances." An hour later, my entire financial life was spread across their dining table like evidence in a fraud investigation. Marcus had brought home his work laptop and a box of color-coded highlighters. He'd requested 3 years of bank statements, credit card records, even the Venmo transactions I'd forgotten existed. This is going to be hard to see, he warned, uncapping a yellow highlighter. Yellow meant Logan's car payments. $480 monthly for 36 months. Pink showed his clothing purchases. Brooks Brothers, Hugo Boss, Nordstrom. $17,000 in 3 years. Green marked dinners out, always at restaurants I couldn't afford but he insisted were necessary for networking. This one, Marcus pointed to a blue highlighted section. His gym membership. $200 a month for that CrossFit place downtown. You've been paying it for 2 years. He said it was our joint membership. That I could go anytime. Did you ever go? He said I wouldn't fit in there. Marcus's jaw tightened. He pulled out orange for Logan's family expenses. His mother's birthday dinner at the Ritz, $1,200. Christmas gifts for his cousins I'd never met, $3,000. His father's golf club initiation fee, $5,000. I thought we were building something together, I whispered. You were building. He was withdrawing. Marcus turned his laptop screen toward me. While you were paying all this, look at his savings account. $140,000. Accumulated over 3 years while I sold family heirlooms and skipped meals. That's marital property, Emma said, reading over my shoulder. Every penny saved while you paid his expenses. We need Victoria Lawson, Marcus said, already pulling out his phone. Best divorce attorney in Boston. She handled my colleague's case when her husband tried hiding assets. Victoria found everything. 3 hours later, I sat in Victoria Lawson's office on the 15th floor of a building that screamed success. She was nothing like I'd expected. Late 50s, silver hair in a perfect bob, wearing jeans and a blazer like she didn't need to prove anything to anyone. Tell me about the dinner, she said, her Mont Blanc pen poised over a leather journal. I told her everything. The toast to Natalie. The shirt. The public humiliation designed as entertainment. Her pen never stopped moving. Massachusetts recognizes financial abuse in divorce proceedings, Victoria explained. The documentation Marcus compiled shows clear economic exploitation. The birthday dinner? That's emotional abuse with witnesses. 25 witnesses. Her assistant brought coffee in real china cups. Will file Monday. Request exclusive occupancy of your apartment since it's in your name. Freeze joint assets. Demand full financial disclosure. What about his savings? Marital property. Every dollar saved while you covered expenses is subject to equitable distribution. She smiled, sharp as winter. Men like Logan always think they're smarter than the system. They're usually wrong. I signed the retainer with hands that didn't shake. For the first time in years, I was spending money on something that would actually protect me. That night in Emma's guest room, I slept like I'd been drugged. 14 hours straight, no dreams, no anxiety, just unconsciousness. When I woke, afternoon sun slanted through curtains I didn't recognize, and for a moment I forgot why I was there. The emerald dress hung on the closet door, cleaned and pressed. Emma's note was pinned to it, for when you're ready to decide what to do with it. Burn it, sell it, or wear it like armor. Your choice now. I spent that evening doing something I'd avoided for years, reading our text history with clear eyes. The patterns jumped out like neon signs. Can't make dinner work thing came up. Don't wait. Need you to handle the bills this month. Big investment opportunity one can't miss. Your sister's wedding sounds boring. I'll skip it. Natalie says you should wear something more professional to company events. Natalie. Her name appeared in his texts more than mine did. Natalie thinks. Natalie says. Natalie suggested. My phone, finally unblocked, showed 243 missed calls from Logan. Plus 18 voicemails I'd never listened to. Sometimes the best response to someone screaming for your attention is silence. I was learning that now, 3 years too late but hopefully not too far gone to save. The silence I'd chosen as my response lasted exactly until Monday morning at 6:47 a.m. That's when Logan discovered a new strategy, recruiting his army. His mother's voicemail came first, her cultured Connecticut accent dripping disappointment. Avery, I'm shocked by your behavior. Logan called me in tears. Actual tears. To abandon him at his birthday celebration over a harmless joke? This isn't the daughter-in-law I thought I knew. Marriage requires forgiveness, dear. Call him. I played it for Victoria over the phone while making breakfast at Emma's kitchen table. She laughed, actually laughed. Save everything. Harassment from his family helps our case. By noon the messages had evolved. Logan's brother James, the investment banker who'd once told me I was lucky Logan chose someone so ordinary, sent a text novel about maturity and overreactions. 3 of his coworkers reached out through LinkedIn of all places, suggesting I didn't understand office culture and professional humor. Each message got screenshotted, filed, forwarded to Victoria's paralegal who was building something she called the harassment folder. Logan himself cycled through emotions like a broken washing machine. His 7 a.m. voicemail, angry, demanding I return his calls immediately. The 10 a.m. one, bewildered, asking what he'd done that was so terrible. By 2 p.m., tears, actual sniffling about how he couldn't focus at work, how everyone kept asking where I was. You're destroying us over nothing, he said in message number 17. Natalie thinks you're having some kind of breakdown. Natalie. Always Natalie. Her message came at 2 a.m. Tuesday morning. I was awake, staring at Emma's guest room ceiling, when my phone lit up with an Instagram notification. A message request from Natalie Brooks and Ung. It started with fake concern. Hi Avery, I wanted to reach out woman to woman. Then it shifted, revealed its teeth. I understand you're hurt, but you need to understand that Logan is going places. He needs a partner who can match his ambition. Someone who understands that success requires sacrifice and a sense of humor. Your insecurity has been holding him back for months. We've talked about it extensively. We've talked about it. The birthday dinner was supposed to be lighthearted, a way to break the tension everyone feels when you're around. You make people uncomfortable with your intensity about money. A real wife would have laughed, shown she was confident enough to take a joke. Instead, you proved exactly what Logan's been saying. You're not equipped for his world. She signed off with, I hope you get the help you clearly need. I read it 3 times, each word a small knife. Then I forwarded it to Victoria with the subject line, Evidence of affair? Victoria called immediately despite the hour. This is gold. She's admitting to private conversations about your marriage, undermining you to your husband, orchestrating public humiliation. Print this. Back it up. This woman just handed us a gift. Wednesday morning, I needed to move my body or I'd implode. The YMCA on Huntington Avenue cost $35 a month compared to Logan's $200 CrossFit membership. He'd called it embarrassing, where people who've given up go to pretend they're exercising. The treadmill faced a wall of mirrors. For the first time in years, I really looked at myself running. Not critiquing, not comparing to the Instagram perfect women at Logan's gym, just observing. My body was strong. It had carried me through 3 years of emotional labor, financial stress, constant criticism. My face, without the expensive makeup I'd worn like armor, looked younger somehow. Good form, a voice said beside me. A woman in her 70s, silver hair in a perfect bun, arms defined like a swimmer's. I'm Diane. Haven't seen you here before. First time, I managed between breaths. Avery. Starting fresh. She didn't wait for an answer. I recognized the look. Had it myself at 32 when I divorced Harold. Thought my life was over. Turned out it was just beginning. She told me about the 40 years since, Thailand, Morocco, Alaska. Photography courses in Paris. Learning to tango in Buenos Aires at 65. Harold said travel was wasteful. Now I go wherever I want, whenever I want. Best investment I ever made was in my own freedom. She left me with a wink in her card. She was a travel blogger now at 73. For when you're ready to see what's out there. That afternoon, I sat in Emma's home office with boxes of documents Victoria had requested. Tax returns, bank statements, insurance policies. Logan had always handled our filing system, insisting he was better with organization. What I found in a folder labeled investments made my stomach drop. An account I'd never seen. Opened 2 years ago at a bank we didn't use. The statements showed automatic deposits from Logan's checking. The account I thought was for our joint expenses. $89,000 accumulated while I'd been selling my grandmother's jewelry, skipping lunches, anxiety shopping in dollar stores for groceries. The most recent transaction was dated 1 week before his birthday dinner. $3,000 transferred out. Description, NB gift. Natalie Brooks. He'd given her $3,000 while I was begging credit card companies to raise my limits for his party. I called Victoria immediately. Can you come to the office? Bring everything. An hour later, I sat in her conference room while she and her paralegal went through the statements with the excitement of archaeologists finding buried treasure. This changes everything, Victoria said. He's been deliberately hiding assets while watching you go into debt. The transfer to Natalie? Either he's paying her for something, or it's proof of an inappropriate relationship. Either way, it's financial infidelity on top of everything else. Logan called while we were documenting everything. Victoria grabbed my phone. Let me. She put it on speaker. Mr. Harrison, this is Victoria Lawson, Mrs. Harrison's attorney. All communication needs to go through legal channels now. Her attorney. Are you serious, Avery? Over a joke. Mr. Harrison, I'm advising you to get counsel. You'll be served with papers shortly. This is insane. Avery, please. Victoria hung up. That's the last time you'll hear his voice without a lawyer present. I promise you that. That evening I sat with Emma and Marcus showing them the hidden account statements. Marcus whistled low. He played you for a fool while building his safety net. Built it with my money essentially, I said, surprised by how steady my voice sounded. While I was paying all his expenses, he was saving every penny. Emma reached over and squeezed my hand. Not anymore. My phone showed 57 new messages from Logan's various flying monkeys. His mother, brother, cousins I'd met once, friends who'd laughed at the birthday dinner. All singing the same song about overreactions, misunderstandings, simple jokes taken too far. But mixed in were other messages. Women who'd heard about what happened through the Boston Gossip Network. They shared their own stories. Husbands who'd humiliated them publicly, partners who'd drained them financially. The slow recognition that love shouldn't cost everything you have. One message stood out from a number I didn't recognize. I was at the dinner. What he did was cruel. You deserve better. We all knew it was wrong, but nobody spoke up. I'm sorry. That anonymous message from someone at the dinner stayed with me through the night. Someone had seen the cruelty and recognized it, even if they'd stayed silent. It made what came next feel less like revenge and more like justice. Victoria called Thursday morning with barely contained glee. Tomorrow at 10 a.m. The weekly partner meeting at his firm. Everyone will be there. You're sure about this? Public humiliation deserves a public response. Besides, Massachusetts law requires personal service. We're just ensuring it happens at an opportune moment. The process server Victoria hired looked like everyone's grandmother. Gray hair and soft curls, cardigan with cat buttons, the kind of face that got waved through security without question. Her name was Dorothy and she'd been doing this for 30 years. Don't worry, honey, Dorothy told me over the phone. I've served papers to bigger fish than your husband. They all react the same way, like they never thought consequences would find them. I couldn't sleep Thursday night, knowing what would happen in the morning. At 3 a.m. I gave up and opened my laptop. The cursor blinked at me from a blank page and suddenly words started pouring out. The Real Cost of Love, I typed as the title. Then I wrote about the $47 in my checking account while paying for his smoothie ingredients. About my card declining on a $6 salad while he ate client dinners on the company card. About selling my grandmother's ring to pay his car insurance. About $8,000 for a birthday dinner where I was the punchline. I wrote about financial abuse disguised as partnership. About women who fund their own erasure. About the moment you realize you've been paying someone to diminish you. At 4:47 a.m., I hit publish on the free blogging platform Emma had suggested. I expected maybe she'd read it, maybe Marcus. Send me supportive texts about being brave. By 7 a.m. there were 43 comments. Women sharing their own stories. Credit cards maxed for husbands' hobbies. Inheritances drained for boyfriends' business ventures. Savings emptied for partners' dreams while their own withered. By noon, after Dorothy had done her work, there were 300 comments. The post had been shared 200 times. My phone buzzed with notifications I didn't understand. What was a rest hack? Why were strangers following me? But first, Dorothy's report. He was mid-presentation when I walked in. PowerPoint about quarterly projections still on screen. I announced, divorce papers for Logan Harrison, clear as day. He went white, then red, then tried to say there was a mistake. That's when his colleague pointed out I was holding legal documents, not a birthday telegram. Was she there? Natalie. Sitting 3 seats from him. Went pale as a ghost when I said, divorce. Security escorted me out very politely, but not before everyone got a good look. That office will be talking about this for months. Tuesday evening, 5 days after the birthday dinner, Logan showed up at Emma's house. I saw him through the peephole, suit wrinkled, hair uncombed, holding carnations from the grocery store. The kind that cost $4.99 and come wrapped in cellophane. Emma stood behind me. You don't have to answer. I know. But I opened the door anyway, staying behind the screen. My phone was already recording in my pocket. Avery. His voice cracked on my name. Please. We need to talk. So talk. He launched into what felt like a rehearsed speech. Started with tears, actual tears, about how he'd never meant to hurt me. Shifted to anger about the scene at his office, how I'd humiliated him. Then bargaining, promises of counseling, of change, of doing better. I'll go to therapy, he said. Couples counseling. Individual therapy. Whatever you want. What I wanted was a partner who didn't need therapy to learn not to humiliate me. It was a joke. Natalie said. He caught himself, but the damage was done. Natalie said what, Logan? His face shifted through several expressions before landing on defensive. She understands me. He gets my humor, my ambition. You've always been so serious about everything. So worried about money, about appearances. I worried about money because I was funding your entire life while you saved every penny. That's not, I was building our future. In a secret account. With transfers to Natalie. His mouth opened, closed, opened again. You went through my private documents? Our financial documents. For our divorce lawyer. He stepped forward and I stepped back, keeping the screen door between us. Avery, please. Don't do this. You're destroying everything over one bad night. No, Logan. You destroyed everything. I'm just refusing to pay for the cleanup. Emma appeared beside me. You need to leave. No. Or I'm calling the police. He looked between us, his face cycling through manipulation tactics like a slot machine looking for the winning combination. Finally, he placed the carnations on the porch, still in their cellophane wrapper, and walked away. Wednesday morning, Victoria forwarded me an email with the subject line, Christmas came early. Someone had sent my blog post to Logan's HR department. Attached was a note. This describes an employee at your firm. The birthday dinner mentioned involved another employee, Natalie Brooks. Thought you should know about potential workplace inappropriate conduct. By afternoon, Logan's company had launched an investigation. Victoria had a contact there who told her colleagues were suddenly remembering things. Intimate lunches, closed-door meetings, the way Natalie always seemed to know Logan's schedule better than his assistant did. The best part. Victoria said over the phone. They're investigating the $3,000 transfer. If he used any company resources, his work computer, company phone, even company time, to transfer money to a subordinate he's potentially involved with, that's termination worthy. My blog kept growing. 1,000 shares. 2,000. Women reaching out with their stories, lawyers offering advice, financial advisors explaining economic abuse. Someone started a hashtag. #real cost of love. Thursday, a message from an unexpected source. Logan's cousin Melissa, who'd been at the birthday dinner. I should have said something that night. We all knew it was wrong. But Logan's always been the golden boy in the family, and everyone just goes along with whatever he does. I'm sorry. You deserved better. We all knew it and we stayed silent. That's on us. By Friday, a week after the dinner that changed everything, my life had split into before and after. Before, I was invisible, funding someone else's life while mine disappeared. After, I was awake, aware, and finally fighting for myself. Logan had called 347 times total since that night. I'd answered once. The number felt significant somehow. 347 attempts to regain control, 347 failures to understand that some things, once broken, can't be fixed with flowers from the grocery store and promises to change. Victoria called that evening with an update. His lawyer reached out. They want to negotiate. Seems the HR investigation isn't going well for him. What do they want? What they want doesn't matter. What matters is what you're entitled to. And honey, that's a lot more than they want to admit. I sat in Emma's guest room that night, reading through the comments on my blog. Each woman sharing her story of financial manipulation, emotional abuse, public humiliation transformed into private survival. We were building something together. A chorus of voices saying the same thing. We deserve better. We are worth more than the bills we paid and the dreams we funded. The mediation room smelled like leather and disappointment. Victoria's conference room table stretched between two worlds. Logan and his lawyer on one side, Victoria and me on the other. 2 weeks had passed since the birthday dinner, and here we sat determining the price of 3 years of marriage. Logan's lawyer, a man named Richard Steinberg who wore cufflinks worth more than my monthly salary, slid a paper across the table with the confidence of someone who'd never lost. My client is prepared to be generous, he began, his voice smooth as oil. Mrs. Harrison keeps her personal belongings and her debt. Mr. Harrison retains his savings, accumulated through his hard work and financial discipline. Logan actually nodded like this made perfect sense. He was wearing his best suit, the charcoal one I'd bought him for last Christmas with money I didn't have. I earned that money, Logan said, looking directly at me for the first time since we'd entered the room. Every penny came from my salary. Victoria didn't even blink. She reached into her leather portfolio and pulled out Marcus's forensic accounting report, bound and tabbed like evidence in a murder trial. Which, in a way, it was evidence of the murder of my financial security. $127,000, she said, sliding it across the table. That's what Mrs. Harrison paid in Mr. Harrison's expenses over 3 years. With interest calculated at market rate, it's closer to $135,000. She flipped to a tab section. Car payments, insurance, clothing, meals, gym membership, family gifts, even his mother's birthday dinners. All paid from Mrs. Harrison's income while Mr. Harrison saved his entire 6-figure salary. Richard Steinberg's face didn't change, but Logan's did. The smugness drained away like water from a tub. Additionally, Victoria continued, there's the matter of the $89,000 in the hidden account, and the $3,000 transfer to Natalie Brooks, dated 1 week before the birthday dinner. We need a recess, Steinberg said quickly. Take all the time you need, Victoria replied. The numbers won't change. While they huddled in the hallway, I sat there staring at the conference room's view of Boston Harbor. Ships moving in and out, carrying things to new places. Starting journeys, ending others. Victoria's hand touched my shoulder. You okay? He really thinks he earned that money. He really believes I contributed nothing. Men like Logan always do. That's why we document everything. When they returned, Logan wouldn't look at me. Steinberg's proposal had changed, but not enough. They'd moved from insulting to merely inadequate. Victoria prepared for round 2 when my phone buzzed. Emma, texting urgently, "Mom is here." My mother, Helen, had driven 14 hours from Florida without telling anyone. I found her in Emma's living room, looking smaller than I remembered, older too. We hadn't spoken in 6 months. Not since I'd cancelled my visit because Logan needed me to attend his company gala. "I read your blog," she said instead of hello. The silence stretched between us like all the years of things unsaid. "Sit," she said, patting the couch beside her. "I need to tell you something." Over tea that Emma quietly made and left us to drink, my mother told me her story. How she'd worked 2 jobs to put my father through law school. How she'd given up her scholarship to study art in Italy because he said marriage was more important. How she'd spent 30 years funding his dreams. His law practice, his golf club memberships, his affairs she pretended not to know about. "I told myself it was love," she said, her hands wrapped around the mug like it could warm more than just her fingers. "Sacrifice meant love. The more I gave up, the more it proved I loved him." "But you seemed happy," I said, remembering family dinners where she'd smiled and served and never complained. "I got very good at seeming." Her voice cracked. "When your father died, I was 65. 65 years old, and I'd never been to Paris. Never painted anything just for me. Never bought a dress without wondering if he'd approve." She pulled out her phone, showing me pictures from the last 5 years. Helen in Paris finally. Helen at a pottery class in Sedona. Helen laughing with friends I'd never met on a beach in Portugal. 5 years of living, she said. After 30 of existing. Don't wait for permission, Avery. Don't wait for him to die or leave or change. Give yourself permission now. We held each other then, both crying for the years we'd lost to men who saw us as supporting cast in their stories. That evening my phone rang with an unknown number. A woman's voice, warm and professional. "Is this Avery Harrison? I'm Jennifer Wu, a literary agent. I've been following your blog. 20,000 shares. That's what The Real Cost of Love had reached." Jennifer wanted to talk about book deals, speaking engagements, turning my story into something bigger. "I'm also getting inquiries from media outlets," she said. "Podcasts, magazines. Your story is resonating." I accepted one interview, a small podcast called Divorced and Thriving, run by a family law attorney named Diane Walsh. The recording happened over Zoom from Emma's guest room, my voice shaking as I introduced myself. But as I talked about the birthday dinner, about the financial abuse, about the moment I realized I'd been funding my own erasure, my voice steadied. Grew stronger. "Financial abuse is still abuse," I said, surprised by my own clarity. "When someone watches you struggle while they save, that's abuse. When they let you skip meals so they can eat well, that's abuse. When they make you feel grateful for being allowed to pay their bills, that's abuse." The interview went live Thursday morning. By Friday evening it had 40,000 downloads. Messages flooded in from women who'd lived the same story, who'd funded their own diminishment, who'd been told they were lucky to be chosen. But the universe wasn't done delivering justice. Friday at 4 p.m. Victoria called with news that made me sit down on Emma's kitchen floor. HR concluded their investigation. Natalie Brooks has been transferred to the Delaware office, effective immediately. Logan's been placed on administrative leave pending further review. What does that mean? It means security escorted him out with a cardboard box while his colleagues watched. His key card's been deactivated. His assistant is already packing up his corner office. I thought I'd feel triumphant. Instead I felt empty. Not sad, not happy, just empty. Like watching a movie end that you've been forced to sit through for too long. "There's more," Victoria continued. "His lawyer called. They want to settle. The real settlement this time. Half the hidden savings, plus monthly support for 2 years, plus assuming all marital debt." Why now? Because Logan, without his job, without his reputation, without his image? That Logan knows he can't win. Pride is expensive when you're unemployed. I sat there on Emma's kitchen floor, phone in hand, thinking about karma and cost. About prices paid and bills coming due. About my mother finally living at 70. About the women reading my blog and finding their own voices. About Natalie packing for Delaware. About Logan carrying his box of office supplies to his BMW that I'd been paying for. 6 months. That's how long it took for the scales to balance. I stood in front of Victoria's office mirror, adjusting the emerald dress I'd worn to Logan's birthday dinner. The same dress I'd hidden in for $8,000 worth of humiliation. Emma had suggested burning it, but I had different plans. Today it would witness a different kind of transaction. You ready? Victoria asked, handing me a glass of water. Through the glass conference room walls, I could see Logan already seated with Richard Steinberg. He looked smaller somehow, his suit hanging loose on a frame that had lost the gym-sculpted confidence. 3 months without his $200 CrossFit membership showed. Let's get this done, I said. The papers were already prepared. 43 pages detailing the division of assets, the monthly support payments, the assumption of debt. Victoria had fought for every penny and won most of them. Logan's hand trembled as he signed his name on line after line. $44,500 from his hidden account, transferred immediately. $2,000 a month in support for 24 months. All credit card debt in his name. His BMW, which I'd been paying for, now officially mine to sell. When he signed the final page, his pen slipped, creating a small ink stain on the conference table's polished surface. He looked at it like it was blood. That joke at your birthday dinner, I said, my voice steady as his hands weren't, cost you everything you saved while I paid for your life. Was the laugh worth it? He opened his mouth, closed it, then pushed back from the table and left without a word. Steinberg gathered the papers, nodded professionally and followed his client out. Victoria popped champagne. Real champagne, not the grocery store kind Logan would buy when he wanted to seem thoughtful. You did it. You're free. Free. The word felt foreign and familiar at once. That afternoon I sat at a different table, my old kitchen table in the apartment Logan had called embarrassing. The one he'd said was too cheap for entertaining, with its wobbling leg I'd fixed with a folded newspaper. Jennifer Wu had sent over the publishing contract for my book, The Cost of Leaving, A Financial Survivor's Guide. The advance was $90,000. More than Logan made in a year at the job he no longer had. I signed it with the same pen I'd used for all those credit card receipts. The one that had signed for his birthday dinners, his suits, his gym membership. Now each stroke of ink was building my future instead of financing his comfort. My phone rang as I was addressing the envelope to send the contract back. The caller ID showed La Bernardine, the restaurant where everything had shattered. Mrs. Harrison? This is James, the general manager. I heard about what happened during the birthday dinner you'd hosted with us. My stomach tightened. How? The stories made rounds in our industry. We pride ourselves on creating meaningful experiences, and to learn that our venue was used for. He paused, choosing words carefully. Such a cruel situation disturbs us greatly. He offered something I hadn't expected. A complimentary dinner for my book launch, the same private room, a chance to rewrite the memory. That's very kind, I said, meaning it. But I only invest in experiences that invest in me now. That room, that restaurant, it served its purpose. It taught me what I was worth in his eyes and, more importantly, what I'm worth in mine. I understand completely. Would you allow us to make a donation to a charity of your choice instead? We agreed on a women's financial literacy program. Something good from something awful. 3 weeks later, on a Thursday evening that felt heavier than it should, I heard footsteps on my apartment stairs. Familiar footsteps. The slightly uneven gait Logan had from an old soccer injury he loved telling stories about. I looked through the peephole. He stood there in jeans and a wrinkled t-shirt, looking nothing like the man who'd worn designer suits I'd paid for. His eyes were hollow, shadowed. He'd lost more weight. I opened the door but left the chain on. What do you want, Logan? Can we talk? Please. We have nothing to talk about. Natalie left. The words came out like a confession at gunpoint. The second my money ran out, she transferred back from Delaware. Said I wasn't who she thought I was. Said I didn't have the ambition she'd been attracted to. I said nothing. His pain wasn't mine to soothe anymore. Are you happy? He asked suddenly, his voice raw. Are you happy that you destroyed my life? My career? Everything I built. Everything you built, I repeated, tasting the irony. With whose money, Logan? Whose sacrifices? who skipped meals and sold jewelry and maxed out cards. I made mistakes. You made choices. Now you're experiencing consequences. That's not me destroying your life. That's your life catching up with you. He leaned against the doorframe like he might collapse. I loved you, you know. In my own way. Your way involved publicly humiliating me while I paid for the privilege. That's not love, Logan. That's exploitation with anniversary dinners. So that's it. 3 years and this is how it ends. This is how it ended 6 months ago. You're just now arriving at the conclusion I'd already reached. I started closing the door. Goodbye, Logan. Avery, wait. I closed the door on his words, on his presence, on the whole suffocating history of us. Through the peephole, I watched him stand there for another minute before finally walking away, his shoulders curved inward like parentheses around nothing. My phone buzzed. Emma texting, Diane from your gym called. She wants to take you to lunch tomorrow to celebrate the book deal. Something about travel stories and new beginnings. I texted back a yes, then made myself tea in my small kitchen with its cheap table and wobbling leg. The apartment was quiet except for the radiator's gentle hum. No one asking where their smoothie was. No one complaining about the furniture. No one making me smaller so they could feel bigger. The emerald dress hung in my closet, no longer a costume of pretense but armor of survival. The divorce papers sat in my filing cabinet, 43 pages that had transferred more than money, they'd transferred power. The book contract waited on my desk, ready to be mailed in the morning. I thought about revenge, about whether this counted. Logan had lost his job, his reputation, his girlfriend, his savings. But I hadn't orchestrated any of it. I'd simply stopped paying for the show, and without funding, the performance had collapsed. The real revenge wasn't in what he'd lost. It was in what I'd gained. My voice, through the blog that had helped thousands of women recognize their own exploitation. My story now becoming a book that would help more. My freedom bought back with the same determination that had once paid his bills. Tomorrow Jennifer would announce the book deal. Next month I'd do a speaking event for the financial literacy program. Next year, who knew? Maybe I'd finally take that art class my mother never got to take. Maybe I'd travel to Paris before 70. The tea was perfect. Not too hot, not too sweet, exactly how I liked it. No one else's preferences to consider. No one else's tastes to accommodate. The morning of my first book tour stop, I stood in the bathroom of my apartment, brushing teeth that no longer ground together from stress. 8 months had passed since Logan walked away from my door. 8 months of rebuilding that started with tea for one and led to this. Speaking at Porter Square Books to 200 women who'd pre-ordered The Cost of Leaving. The bookstore's event space overflowed with folding chairs. Women of every age filled them, some clutching their own divorce papers, others holding hands with friends who'd dragged them here, a few with teenage daughters they wanted to hear this message before they needed it. I opened to chapter 3, the birthday dinner chapter, my hands steady on the podium. He handed me a t-shirt that said divorced and free while 50 people laughed. I read, my voice carrying to the back row. I'd paid $8,000 to become the punchline of his joke. No one laughed here. Several women wiped their eyes. After the reading, the line stretched around the store. Each woman had a story. Rebecca showed me bank statements where she'd paid her boyfriend's law school loans while he complained about her cooking. Diane brought screenshots of Venmo requests from an ex who'd itemized their dates but never offered to pay. Margaret, 73, simply pressed my hand and said, 40 years too late for me but not for my granddaughter. We weren't just sharing stories anymore. We were building something, a network of understanding that financial abuse wasn't about money. It was about power, diminishment, the slow erosion of self-worth transaction by transaction. 2 weeks later came Emma's wedding. She'd insisted on a small ceremony, just family and close friends, nothing like the production Logan would have demanded. I stood beside her as maid of honor, wearing a sapphire dress I'd bought with my own money. Not on sale, not on credit, just walked into Nordstrom and paid full price because I wanted it. Marcus waited at the altar, tears already streaming before Emma even appeared. This was what Logan never understood. Real strength meant being vulnerable with your partner, not performing invulnerability at their expense. When it came time for my speech, I didn't tell jokes or embarrassing stories. I talked about partnership. Emma and Marcus show us what support really looks like, I said, catching Emma's eye as she held Marcus's hand. Not one person being the ladder while the other climbs, but two people lifting each other higher. Not one person funding dreams while theirs die, but two people investing in a shared future. I looked at Marcus. Thank you for seeing my sister as an equal, not an accessory. For understanding that her success doesn't diminish yours. For never making her smaller so you could feel bigger. Emma was crying, but they were different tears than the ones she'd shed on her kitchen floor 8 months ago. These were tears of joy, of recognition, of seeing love that multiplied instead of divided. To partnerships that make us more ourselves, I raised my glass, not less. My apartment had transformed over the months. The wobbling kitchen table now held fresh flowers I bought myself every Friday. The walls displayed my own artwork. Watercolors I'd finally returned to painting at 5 a.m., that sacred time that belonged to me again. Above my desk hung the birthday gift that changed everything. The divorced and free t-shirt, professionally framed with museum glass, a small brass plaque beneath it, the gift that gave me back my life. During video interviews for the book tour, reporters always asked about it. Why keep it? Why display something so cruel? Because it's not cruel anymore, I'd explain. It's evidence of transformation. He meant it as humiliation. I transformed it into liberation. Every time I see it, I remember that the worst moment of my marriage became the first moment of my freedom. One interviewer, a woman named Patricia with knowing eyes, said, "You've reclaimed the narrative." I've reclaimed more than that. I've reclaimed my financial future, my self-worth, my right to take up space. The shirt just reminds me that sometimes gifts come in terrible wrapping. The year anniversary arrived on a Tuesday, October 15th. I woke to hundreds of messages, not from Logan this time, but from women around the country who'd left their own financial abusers after reading my story. Your blog gave me the courage to check our bank statements. I finally understood why I felt poor despite working 2 jobs. My daughter read your book and recognized her relationship in it. Thank you for naming what I couldn't name. I sat at my kitchen table, the same wobbly one, with my laptop and coffee that cost what I wanted to pay for it. My bank account showed a balance I'd never imagined possible. Not wealth but security. Not excess but enough. Enough to say no. Enough to say yes. Enough to choose. Jennifer had called the night before about the second book. Publishers wanted more, wanted to go deeper into the recovery, the rebuilding, the reclaiming. The cost of staying would explore why we remain in financial abuse, why we fund our own diminishment, why we mistake sacrifice for love. My phone buzzed. Diane from the gym, now a close friend, texting about our planned trip to Montreal next month. My mother sending photos from her art class in Sedona, finally painting at 71. Emma sharing ultrasound images. I'd be an aunt in 6 months. Life was happening. Real life, not the performance I'd funded for 3 years. That evening I pulled out my journal and wrote. 1 year ago I paid $8,000 for a dinner that ended my marriage. Today I understand it wasn't a loss, it was an investment. The most expensive and valuable lesson of my life. Some bills are worth paying when they purchase your freedom. I looked at the framed shirt one more time. Divorced and free. He'd meant it as a prediction of my failure. Instead, it became a declaration of my independence. The bill for my humiliation had been $8,000. The return on that investment? Priceless. My voice, my story, my freedom. None of it would have emerged without that terrible night when I learned the real cost of love wasn't what you paid to keep it. It was what you paid to leave it behind. My phone showed another message, this one from a woman in Oregon whose husband had just handed her a joke gift at their anniversary dinner. She was sitting in her car, crying, wondering what to do. I wrote back, drive to somewhere safe. Tomorrow you start documenting everything. Tonight you just need to know, this isn't your fault and you're not alone. The sisterhood of the financially free grew by one more. The bill for my education had been paid in full, and now I was helping others recognize the price tags on their own lives. Some bills I'd learned were meant to be torn up. Others were meant to be paid once and never again. $8,000. 87 missed calls. 1 t-shirt. 0 regrets. The check had finally, fully, completely cleared. If this story of financial revenge had you cheering for Avery, hit that like button right now. My favorite part was when she walked out of that restaurant after secretly paying the $8,000 bill, leaving Logan to panic about the receipt. What was your favorite moment? Drop it in the comments below. Don't miss more empowering stories like this. Subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss an upload.